I have the honor of welcoming you again to the very first in-person event of the Climate Solutions Series at the Great Northern, so thank you so much for being here. And of course we have Bob Blake with us, Sherry Smith, we have Strong Buffalo, and Brent Williams. And I'm Josna Harris, proud board member of the Great Northern. Every year our festival shares dozens of performances, art installations, outdoor activations, and solution-focused climate talks like the one that you're at today. And this happens every year the last week of January and through the first week of February to invigorate mind and body. And I want to thank our Climate Series sponsors without their support this would not be possible. The McKnight Foundation, Minneapolis Foundation, Ascot Finlayson, Polestar Minneapolis, and the Carlson Family Foundation for their support for these important conversations. In addition to the many organizations and individuals whose contributions annually make this possible. So if you would like to support the Great Northern and our ability to bring you free programming like this, we encourage you to make a donation on our website at thegreatnorthernfestival.com. And now I'm honored to introduce to you our distinguished speakers. Today, Bob Blake, who is a tribal citizen of Red Lake, band of Ojibwe Indians, are better known as Bob Blake from Red Lake. Don't want to steal your thunder. Bob is also the founder and CEO of Solar Bear, pronounced Gizisomakwa in Ojibwe. He is also the executive director of Native Son Community Power Development. Sherry Smith's experience in mitigating climate change and restoring economies with the power of renewable energy spans 2 decades. A descendant of the Micmac tribe of Maine and Canadian Maritimes, she has made it her life's work to leverage this expertise and benefit Indigenous peoples. And the conversation will be moderated by Brent Williams, who leads Minnesota Public Radio's Race, Class, and Communities reporting team. Prior to that role, he covered the city of Minneapolis for nearly 30 years. We're also honored to have Strong Buffalo, Dakota elder, and an enrolled member of the Sisseton Wahpeton Dakota. Strong Buffalo is also a Vietnam veteran, a writer and musician, and Strong Buffalo is leading climate reparations circles around healing and climate grief in the Twin Cities. So with that, I would like you to welcome Strong Buffalo, who will share a poem with us.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Great Northern, and Bob Blake, Red Lake, for inviting me. On behalf of the Dakota, welcome you all. We've never been invited or accepted into this country. Whether you're from the first immigrants to the last, we welcome you here to Makochi. Ia Tatanka o Hitika, I am Strong Buffalo. I am a Sisseton Wahpeton Dakota. Dakota in my means allies, bright, friendly people. And Takwe Oyase means all my relations, but it also means I'm trying to live in a friendly way with mysterious forces of life, which I think we're trying to do here. And all the things that are going on with the serial killings in Memphis, etc., we sometimes forget that human beings are part of the climate also. I think we're the reason that it's changing. So with that, I'd like to do a prayer. Oh, Grandfather God, pity us. Lean to hear our feeble voices. Send for all those seeking peace, surrounded by war and hate's violence. We go to the east, seeking a new day of hope. We walk to the south where light comes from, bringing a warm rain to wash away evil from those that violate. We go to the west, the gateway to the other side, seeking help on this lonely journey we find ourselves. We go to the north, where the cold wind helps us to endure the pain. And then we go to the center of the circle, and we reach down and we caress our Mother Earth, who loves and nurtures us all. And then we look up and all around and thank you, Creator, for all that you've given to us. And we see the sun, and we know something so important you must have made our visit. So we place our prayers of peace there for you to hear. And we hear you when you tell us peace is stronger than war. And peace must be taught. And peace must be the law for us all. And I have one more to the poets, you know how they are. I have to come back again. This one is called Hidden Falls. If you know, it's right across from Fort Sumter. The world has died before. 4 times the world has died, from fire, floods, cold and dry. The 4th world was to have lasted forever, forevermore. But now we are standing on the last leg of the buffalo, because we have gone too far, way too far. We need to talk. We need to talk about it all and make the corrections needed. Because the only thing different in this world is that we are in it. The only thing different in this world is that we are in it. Because political things happen. Winds change. So make your life stronger. Make your spirit the best that you can. And please, stand tall with Mother Earth, child. Please, stand tall with Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thanks again to everyone here, Great Northern Fest, for inviting me to moderate this. I'm really looking forward to speaking with our panelists today. And I just want to jump right in because I don't want to take more time than we need to, but I was intrigued initially by the title of this session on how tribal nations can lead the way when it comes to renewable energy. And I want to start by asking we'll just start, why are tribal nations best equipped to be able to lead the way towards renewable energy? And Bob, I'll start with you, since you're closest to me. Why is it that you feel like tribal nations are in the best position to make this advance?
Great question, and I just we are the only group of people that we have our own government inside this government, and I think it's really important when you see the leadership that a lot of tribal leaders, including our lieutenant governor, have taken on climate, and of course the other Standing Rock and of course the battle with Line 3 and numerous other Line 5 up in Michigan, and of course everything that's happened down in the Navajo Nation with the coal plant, right? Like there's you constantly see Native people that are fighting for the planet, and so and for the environment, and so I think it's just us being able to leverage our sovereignty, because we have that ability to do so, and the corporations have a real stronghold on our government, and so that's why it's really important for Native people to take a step. And we have 574 tribal nations across the country that can do so, and and I really do believe that the electric grid is killing us. The coal, the fossil fuels that we're burning, we need to switch to renewables, and I would say decolonize the electric grid, is what I'm trying to do with solar here, right, is what I'm trying to do. And then with the electric vehicle charging network that we're building with Native Sun through the 3 states here, that right there, decolonizing the transportation system, because that's the other thing that's killing the planet.
Right.
And so when you look at how per capita in the United States, we emit the most greenhouse gases around the world, we have an important role to play in mitigating our use of greenhouse gases. So that's why this is really important for tribal nations and our people to lead the way.
Well, I definitely want to touch on decolonization here during this discussion, but first, same question to you, Sherry. Why are tribal nations best equipped to lead the way when it comes to renewable energy future?
So as the original stewards of our homelands, who better? And Indigenous people have an innate desire to have balance and aren't steeped in extractive notions. And when Indigenous people take from the earth, they give back. They take in just enough, no more than you need. And colonization and westward expansion and all of that led to trauma, and that trauma led to anger and motivation, and not so much anger as motivation to return our earth to a state of balance. And so, coupled with all of these amazing things that Indigenous people and Native people and tribes are capable of because of sovereignty, you couple that with that indigeneity and that desire to preserve the planet and that motivation to return us to balance, and it's really powerful.
Right. And as you mentioned, it sounds like what you're saying too is, which goes into my next question, which is, why is it important for Natives to be the one leading the way when it comes to this effort? And I think that's something that I've heard you speak about before in the past, but I'll put it to you to kind of elaborate on what you mean by that, by why it's important that Indigenous people have the means to control renewable energy future.
Well, a premise of both of our organizations, all of our organizations, is that you can't truly have a just transition unless this transition is led by people that it affects the most. So in our case, it's by Native people, for Native people. Otherwise, renewable energy, clean energy, EVA, all of this development can be just as extractive as fossil fuel development has been, if not done that way. And traditionally, there's, late in the last decade, there's been a lot of renewable development on tribal lands, but it's been done in a way that extracts most of the value of this development out of the community and sends it out into the pockets of the developers and the banks, the rich white guys. And that's a fact. We're approaching this completely differently. Native people have a seat at the table in the planning. They decide what's going where with observation for cultural considerations, lifeways, sacred sites, and they're making the decisions, and that's how it should be.
Right.
And Native people are going to build it. We know, Bob and I know in the work that we do, that it's not possible to have 100% Native workforce yet. We hope to see that in our lifetime, where this infrastructure is being built by 100% by Natives. But like in my culture, we have a word, etuaptmunk, which literally translated means two-eyed seeing. And we have to, especially right now at the forefront of this effort, see through both eyes. With one eye, the wisdom and the knowledge of Indigenous people, and with the other eye, the wisdom and the knowledge of Western society and what it brings. And we need to work together to deploy it for the benefit of all people.
Right. Bob, same question to you about the importance of Indigenous communities being in control of having the power to build this and be a part of a major player in their own future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I believe like a human health crisis is happening in our communities in tribal country, and I believe that the cure to this is renewable energy. And I think by implementing renewable energy into these communities, by building our own utilities, creating jobs and opportunities, because at the very crux of everything is poverty. Poverty is what's really plaguing our communities, and that's what's really at the kind of intersection of all the issues that we're seeing. And so if I can attack, the poverty by creating these tribal utilities and creating these jobs and these opportunities, and these jobs are very technical too. So you're talking about people using your analytical skills, and I always say that when you're able to use your analytical skills and sharpen your analytical skills, the less stupid stuff you're doing. You know what I mean? So you're able to kind of like think forward, right? And so we implement all this education, and then it's a ripple effect. You know what I mean? And so that's why I really see this opportunity where tribal nations can really make this difference, because it comes down to policy. Right? It comes down to policy. And so along with policy comes investment. And so that's where I see how this is trickling. And so that's where I'm really excited for where everything is going. And I can't even begin to tell you how far we've come within the last 7 years since I've been doing this work. And it's just been amazing, the strides that we've made. But unfortunately, we don't have the time that the scientists are telling us of 100 years. We don't have 50 years. We don't have 30 years, people. We have the next 10 years. And I'm sorry to say that we got to move on this. And so if I sound urgent, and if I'm constantly every day working to advance these goals and these missions, that's the reason why, and this is what drives me in my work.
Right. And let's talk about the beans. When we're talking about renewable energy, I think both of you are very entrenched in solar. Tell me why solar is such a focus for both of you. Sherry.
Solar is the cheapest form of new electricity generation in the world right now. It can be built in a way that is, let's put it this way, before COVID, the supply chain, it's plentiful. The price has come down to the point where we've reached grid parity. You can train people to build solar in weeks, not years. So these are jobs that are well-paying, that don't require a college degree, and you can be working in 9 days and be mentored, of course, but that's why solar is the low-hanging fruit. The other technologies are of course, we're looking at them and bringing them forward, but solar is the low-hanging fruit. Efficiency is the low-hanging fruit if you look it up, but you got to do it together right now.
Right. Go ahead, Bob.
Scalable, that's what it is, everyone. You're able to scale it up. So I can put one panel, and I can put another panel, and then another panel, and another panel. So that's the reason why that solar is the way it is. And like Sherry said, we can teach anybody. Up on the Red Lake Tribal Government Center, I had 10 tribal members that worked with me on that project. They didn't have any idea how to install solar. By the time that they were done installing this project, they were like, hey, we want to do another one. We want to do another project. And so that's what's really exciting about this, is that that people can get the hang of this. And I like wind, I like all these other technologies too, but the problem is that it's very technical. You need years of training, but I can just grab anybody off the street and show them how to start doing this. You know what I mean? And so when I think about how democratic that is, how I think that giving a job and giving purpose to people and the opportunities that provides for them, what that instills into them, that purpose, and they're fighting climate change, I feel like those are just wins all the way around.
Yeah, and you touched on something that I was going to ask about, the difference between solar and wind, and it sounds like you answered that it's wind just there's a different threshold for getting into it. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the on-ramp for wind is much longer. It's way more expensive as well. Like Bob said, solar is expandable. When we do a small demonstration project in a community, for example, we'll train 12 solar warriors. Like the last two, Standing Rock and Northern Cheyenne, there's 4 of those solar warriors are working in the field now, building for their own tribes, but also building for other tribes, teaching other tribes, tribal members how to build. It's a beautiful thing. And the hope, the Lieutenant Governor talked about hope. That's what this is about for me, and I know for Bob too. When you see a young tribal member who gets in your car on the way to the job site in the morning and tells you, oh, well, I was going to commit suicide on Tuesday, And I'm not because of this job and because I have hope that my community can do this and bounce back from this, and that my friends and I, and my brothers and sisters can have a job in our own community, building a clean energy future and moving away from the exploitive and extractive and discriminatory utilities and their practices. That's what we do this for.
Right. And I've heard, again, I did a little research before the panel and heard both of you speaking about the topic. And Bob, I was struck by something you talked about the people you hire to do this work, that many of them are folks who had been incarcerated and did not have great job prospects. How important is it for you when we're talking about renewable energy and we're talking about renewing and using what's there? We have a workforce of people that are being thrown away because they've been incarcerated. It sounds like you've picked up.
Yeah, that's on purpose. The last project we did up in Red Lake, I had community members telling me, "Why are you hiring that guy? You know, why are you working with him? Why did you hire those guys? You know?" And you want to know something? They did the job. They installed the project, and they got it done. My last crew of 10 guys all got different jobs within the tribe after that. You know, some of these guys just need a second shot. Sometimes we just need a second shot. You know, maybe we messed up that first time. You know, one of the things that I'm really proud of is the Returning Citizens Initiative that we did with the state, with the state of Minnesota Department of Corrections, where we trained 150 inmates on how to do solar installations. So the idea there was to fight climate change with mass incarceration, fight mass incarceration with climate change. You know, we feel like there's this big problem that we've been given. The world's given us a big problem with climate change. And it's telling all of us human beings that you got this big problem here, but you can fix all these little problems too, you know? And so that's the idea. So all we gotta do is get creative with this. And you know, one of the guys that I had him come speak at the 100% campaign, and he said, you know what? He says, I'm getting married. He says, I've taken care of my 3 kids. He says, I got a place to live in, I have a car. He says, and you know, he was incarcerated. He was incarcerated 3 years prior to that. And he just talked about how solar has changed his life. It's given him purpose. You know, a lot of these guys are gonna get out, they're gonna start flipping burgers. You know, they don't feel like they have the purpose, or they feel like they can contribute to society. Well, I'm telling them, I have this existential problem right here, and I need you guys to jump in and help me. And they're sitting there saying, yeah, we're ready. We wanna prove that we're a different person, that we are different people. And so and by the way, Governor Newsom in California, I think took my line because he said, we're fighting mass incarceration with climate change, climate change massacre. But they were doing it but they started doing their fire program differently out there. So, and I had 7 states after that contact me, state of New York being the last one, that are copying that same program that we did here in Minnesota. So I'm really proud of that, and that's the difference that we can make in people's lives.
Karen, we started talking a little bit about, you touched on colonization and the generational effects of, you know, the one of the original sins that is, you know, put so many people, indigenous people as well as people of color all over the world under the boot of folks in power. We've seen that happen everywhere. And I'd love to hear your take on how you feel like with energy sovereignty, that's a way to combat this colonial mindset that's kept folks in these positions for so long.
So I say this often because it's a poignant sort of concept we have to wrap our brains around. How can a tribal nation or any nation or any community be sovereign if it's dependent on outside sources for its resources, for its water, for its electricity, for anything? So first off, that's why, right? Renewables are a powerful tool to restore self-determination and vitality and vibrance that once existed in indigenous societies. It's a very powerful tool, and you can be islanded. You know, tribes, should they choose to have their own utilities and be completely separate from the grid, they can. There's some risks with that, we hope, but tribes need to make the decision for themselves how they want to approach this and at what degree they want to, how fast they want to move. A sense of urgency is a colonial construct. So like Bob always counsels me, go slow to go fast. And right now, we do have an existential crisis and we do need to move fast, but we need to go at the pace that the tribes tell us they want to go. And sovereignty, you can't have it if you're dependent on outside sources. And look at the reservation system and where folks ended up. They're already under control that way. So energy is a very powerful way to restore sovereignty. It's not 100%. Then Bob would be better, or Sean Buffalo would be better to speak about that. I did not grow up on a reserve.
Right. Bob, how do you answer that? I mean, how, when it comes to energy sovereignty?
Yeah, I always tell tribes that, we are in the gaming business, which is $1 billion business. We need to be in the energy business. It's $1 trillion business. We are in the wrong business, people. And I said that on Native America Calling. Should have seen all the emails I got after that. But it's a national radio show said that, and then the guy he ended up repeating that. But and the thing about it is that what's exciting about that is that this can happen. And I started building this tribal utility about a couple of years ago. There was like 2 people working with this law firm that specializes in this. There's 70 now, 70 tribes that are working with this law firm now to create their own tribal utility. I'm sorry, but it's coming, people. You know what I mean? And the secret's out, And so that's what's really exciting, that tribes are looking at this and let's be very honest, right? Before the pandemic, nobody was talking about Blake, right? Nobody wanted to hear from me. But during the pandemic and after I think tribes started seeing their casino drops, they started seeing the money that they were losing. They started seeing that we were teetering on bankruptcy. They started thinking to themselves, oh, hey, let's talk to that guy again who was talking about solar energy, talking about tribal utilities. That's when it hit them, right? Because the sun shines every day. These are pennies. When we turn on the light, those pennies are dropping every second, And so we don't think twice about that. We need energy for everything. And that's how come I started getting phone calls and people started asking me, okay, Bob, how do we create a microgrid? How do we create utility scale solar? How can we use the energy to go ahead and power our communities? So that's what's really exciting, and that's where this is all going.
Right. In a matter of minutes or so, we're going to open it up for questions, but I have a couple more questions for our panel, and we'll give folks in the audience a chance to ask. I want to ask, when we talk about, speaking of money, how do you fund your efforts? Where does that seed capital come from?
Sorry about that. I want to, McKnight Foundation, please get this on camera. McKnight Foundation. McKnight Foundation. Okay, let's just be very honest. Without the McKnight Foundation, Bob Blake wouldn't be here. I'm not even going to lie to you. So I want to just send a big shout out to the McKnight Foundation, because it was you, McKnight Foundation, that believed in me and that you said, hey, we want to invest in your ideas, Bob Blake. We want to help you so you can concentrate on this important work. And I mean, we've got a $46 million contract with the Prairie Island Indian community now. We've got a $7 million contract building an EV charging network throughout the Midwest. There's other things that are happening that are in the mix that I can't, really divulge to say right now, but this thing is happening, and I just want to say to McKnight, thank you so much for believing in me, because they were the ones that when my credit cards were maxed out, I had $20 in my pocket, and McKnight, that check showed up from McKnight, and I just think, oh, and by the way, Winona LaDuke, everyone, Winona LaDuke. I had $40 in my pocket, and she says, Bob, do you need some money to get back to the cities? And I said, yeah. I said, no, I don't want that. That's okay. That's okay, Winona. And she says, no, and she gave me a check. She gave me a check for $5,000 everyone. Wow. She says, I believe in you, Bob Blake. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry now when I think about Winona. But I love Winona because she believed in me when no one else would, and so otherwise I wouldn't be here doing this work.
Sure, in the efforts you've been involved in, how does that work?
So IEI runs 100% on philanthropy, and big shout out to MacArthur Foundation and Energy Foundation and Builders Initiative and all of our supporters because that enables us to offer services to tribes at no cost to them, which is huge when, there's trust issues, of course, 500 years of reasons why. So when a tribe says, how much does it cost for you to help us? Nothing, because we're supported by philanthropy. We help tribes to procure the oodles of funding that are now available thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. Billions of dollars are available now. So there's unfortunately, there's a ton of money, there's a window of time that it's here, and of the 574 tribes, very, very few of them have the capacity to know how to apply for either the loans or the grants. It's the federal government, the red tape is ridiculous. And even I've been doing this for 30 years, have trouble with these applications. So there's that as a capacity problem. Then we have the transmission issues and connecting big utility scale projects to the grid, and the policy issues that still exist in the form of discriminatory rates being charged to Native people, sometimes double or more what the non-Native people down the same lines for the same electrons are being charged. So all of this, we help tribes to address those things, and that's what our funding goes for. But there is a ton of money. And so it's fabulous that it's there, but tribes need support. One of the things we're working on, however, is working ourselves out of a job. Again, it's about self-determination. So we're standing up a program with Arizona State University, 60 Indigenous faculty and 3,800 Indigenous students there. And with the network of tribal colleges, we'll have probably 10 regions where we're going to train the next generation of Indigenous energy leaders. And they will have, first it will be a certificate program, and then it will be a master's degree. Because it is for Indigenous people to go back to their tribes and be that expert. Because that's what's missing right now. But it's got to happen quick, and so we're looking for funding for that.
Well, you mentioned government red tape, and I have to imagine that you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen administrations come and go. Have you seen more cooperation out of certain administrations than you have in others?
This one,
Yeah.
okay? The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, for the first time in our lives, is listening. We are convening a summit of tribal leaders and FERC in April, and they are going to sit and listen to the injustices and how they've affected tribal nations. And they are going to help fix it. Well, at least they're saying they're going to. Y'all, the fact that they're coming to the table and not just turning the other cheek, and it's amazing. This administration, by and large, it blows me away every day. I pinch myself that it's happening.
Right.
This is when I doubled down, was when, because a lot of this started happening for me during the Trump administration. And everybody was like, well, Obama's gone, we're gonna have to wait for the next one. I'm like, the climate change ain't gonna wait. We gotta keep on moving on this. So I thought to myself, well, I'm gonna double down on this, and I'm just gonna really focus and hope for the best. and I mean, that's, you talk about administration, but really it comes down to us. You know what I mean? It really comes down to us. Are we going to move this? Are we going to wait for something else to happen? Because you can't wait for the right policies. You can't wait for the right things. Don't get me wrong. This helps. Don't trust me very much. Very intimately involved with all the stuff that's happening in Washington too. But I mean, it really just comes down to us and us moving the needle. And I think that that's how we're going to defeat and fight climate change.
The state level work that Bob and this administration here in Minnesota have really been.
So state government plays a major role too as well?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and if I could just tell everybody, House File 1647, the creation of the Tribal Energy Advisory Board. This is really important. I just got done talking to Peggy about this. I've been working on this for about 5 years now, and we've got, I've just had some great allies that have helped me at the Department of Commerce and everything. We will be the first state, everyone, in the country with the Tribal Energy Advisory Board, and we're going to get this out to all 49 states.
Can we have?
And these are the ceilings for a Tribal Utilities Commission, okay? And so when the Public Utilities Commission tries to make decisions on energy infrastructure, pipelines, The tribe, they're gonna have to be able to talk to the Tribal Utilities Commission. And by the way, when I wrote this paper in grad school, the one who graded it was Katie Sieben, our Public Utilities Commissioner. She said, Bob, this is a great idea, you have to do it. And so I've been pushing on this for the last 5 years. I want to thank Catherine Bavant at the Department of Commerce, Athena Hollins, and Jamie Becker-Fenn for really taking up the torch on this.
Right, I want to also ask you two about how, because obviously there are tribal citizens who live in urban areas, here in Minneapolis especially. How does this work also benefit members of these nations who are not located on a reservation?
You know, I was at the climate, the tribal climate thing over here over at the Mille Lacs owns the Intercontinental. And
Right.
we had a conference over there, and I was jumping on the elevator, and there was two Native guys that were on the thing with me. One guy said to the other guy, he goes, "What do you do?" He goes, "I do solar." He goes, "My girlfriend works on climate change and adaptation strategies." But you should have heard in the voice. You should have heard the pride that they were saying it in. Man, I about cried in that elevator. Because I was like, oh man, this is getting through. How many kids? I've spoken to McGeezy, I've spoken to Fond du Lac, I've spoken to all these different kids. I speak to classes all over the Twin Cities. All these kids coming up to you saying, I want to have my own solar bear. I want to have, my own native son. I want to do the stuff that you're doing, Bob. And I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, man, you can do it. We can plant those seeds. And that's why I'm so passionate about the Solar Cup program and this K-12 curriculum that we're creating around the Solar Bear family, right? They all wear sunglasses. And they teach, and they're speaking Ojibwe, and they're talking about they're speaking Ojibwe, and they're talking about the culture too, and STEM. And what we found out is that Native kids graduate at a much higher level when they have culture involved in their curriculum. So I've been creating this with teachers from St. John's and St. Ben's, and we got to speak to Anton a couple weeks ago, and we hope to get this, roll this out into different tribes. But the exciting thing about this is plant those seeds, because we're leaving these kids with a big problem. We're leaving with a big problem, and then what I want them to do is I want them to be able to have the tools to fight climate change. I don't want them to put their heads in the ground and start turning to drugs, alcohol, or any other thing, because this is massive what they're going to be dealing with. So I want them to say that, hey, the Bears taught me how to fight climate change, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's the future, and I think that's what's really important. That as this journey that we take, we've got to bring the kids along. Oh, incidentally, they walked into our tribal chairman's office, Chairman Siki's office, and they were talking to our chairman up in Red Lake, and they said to him, Chairman Siki, can we talk to Solar Bear? And our chairman was like, it's not a real thing.
You are Solar Bear. Right. If folks have questions, I believe, who's got the microphone? Crystal will be coming around. Raise your hand, and yes, we've got plenty of folks here, so go ahead and speak up loud and clear and have at it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how do you address sustainable mining with batteries for storage of solar panels and for EVs? Because a lot of the mining is around and near native lands.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, good question. I've been in these conversations with Talon Metals, Tesla, about this, and obviously, I'm very conscientious of the fact that we need, these minerals for batteries and for this transition, right? And so, I personally, am for the mining of minerals and materials that we're going to need for this transition. I'm not for doing it in the boundary waters. I'm not for doing it. Yes, I'm not for doing it where we're currently talking about it up here. So that was my, to Todd, right? Todd Malin of Talon Metals and to those guys, I totally get what you're trying to do, and I'm for it, but I can't do it here because the boundary waters, man. You guys ain't from Minnesota. You guys haven't spent time there. It's beautiful, and we can't ruin that. We got to preserve it with everything that we have for the future generations.
Terry, what about you? Dealing with the renewable, the minerals that are used for these batteries?
when I was at Tesla, we used to get that question a lot about cobalt and other rare earth minerals, and it's a tough one. But the scientists that I have sought the input from tell me that it's the lesser of the evils, and that the technology is getting, they're moving exponentially quicker to figure out how to use less and less and less of these earth elements and do less and less and less destruction and recycle more. And so that the impacts will be even less. It's a tough one. We don't have the answers yet. Like
Right.
they're working on it.
Can it be done safely?
But
Can it be mined safely? That's one of the questions I think a lot of people have.
right. And everyone, it's Moore's law, right? Everything gets better every couple of years. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you know, our technology is getting better everything that I knew today, right, about solar that I could explain to you about the technology that we have right now, like it's gonna be old tomorrow. This is the truth. It keeps on getting better every day and it becomes more and more inefficient. And, you know, this is part of the transition that we're gonna have to deal. But let me tell you something, what we're doing with oil, digging up everything, putting it up in the air, we can't do that anymore, you know? And so when you look at everything that we're doing right here, say this is it, this is about what the mining and everything is gonna be over here. So this is a transition that's gonna have to take place, but I do believe that there are other areas that we can go ahead. And I just saw in a news article that out in Nevada, there's a big area that they're gonna be, that they just realized that they can start doing a lot of this mining and stuff. And so there are other areas we don't have to touch the boundary wires.
We can do it safely. It's expensive,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And we just have to, like capitalism has to take the second run. Safety has to be at the top.
This gentleman right down here, I know has a question.
Thank you, Miigwech. My name is Thomas Kane and I come from the Red Lake Nation. I'm a tribal citizen there. And this question is going to take you back 93 years. History of climate change in Minnesota. So this research I found, 30 years weather in the Red River Valley. And the question I'm going to ask is, including you, the narrator, if you know the professor that wrote this bulletin in 1930. He says, is the climate changing? Are the winters warmer? Are the summers colder? Does a dry year follow a wet one? These and many other such questions are answered in a bulletin recently published by Northwest School and Station, entitled 30 Years of Weather in the Red River Valley. Now, this professor was my father's professor, Thomas Kane Sr., I'm junior. And my father was also a writer of the student newsletter that published this article. And this professor later becomes a PhD. When this was published, he was a Bachelor of Science. So over the years, he kept working at this climate change out of the school and later becomes Crookston, University of Crookston. So he goes on and he goes over to St. Paul Extension School at the university. And when he passes away, he says, I would like my ashes to be spread on the Northwest School's experimental station. So I think that really says a lot. You know, he was really adamant about his work for him to do that. So the question is, who is this professor?
I do not know.
His name is Raymond S. Dunham, Dr. Raymond S. Dunham, and he was my dad's professor.
hey, we should get that an almanac. You know, almanac always has that thing at the end. That's like one of those questions. Yeah, we should get that an almanac.
And one of the things I came out of there with my father, I used to work on gardens all the time. We had a garden everywhere we moved to, whether it was in Panema, Red Lake, always had to weed the garden. Boy, it was backbreaking then.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that, and you gave us all some food for thought. I really appreciate it.
Miigwech.
Miigwech.
Thank you. We have somebody else here. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Barry Reeves, St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm a lifelong resident of Minnesota. Something a little controversial, just about talking about just transition. We need to make a just transition from all the raw materials and resources that go into creating war instead of working on climate crisis. You know, huge, huge resources. It's wasted, totally wasted.
Thank you.
St. Paul Central grad here, grew up in St. Paul my entire life, and St. Paul resident myself, so thank you.
Yes, we have lots of folks here. A couple of minutes.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and for speaking, especially on behalf of tribal people, BIPOC people of this nation. And not just this nation, but this is a crisis all around the world that we're dealing with. I want to say, I like the question about mining, because as a younger generation and speaking on the generations and speaking for the earth, I think that, you know, this is good for today, but for tomorrow we cannot be digging into the planet at all. We can't be waging or, you know, putting people in horrible conditions, putting the planet in horrible conditions to gather energy from the sun. And as tribal people, as Black and Indigenous people, we understand that, you know, the way forward is to work with nature, plants and trees and ourselves. We don't need to dig into the earth to gather the energy from the sun. And there are so many ways for us to really study and work with nature to harness energy, right? So my question for you today is, who can you suggest in terms of organizations, people who are working with regenerative, you know, tribal ways of working with agriculture, because agriculture being also, if not even larger footprint in terms of destroying the planet, right? With how we're farming, with how we're raising animals for overconsumption. What names can you drop here? What organizations can you drop here that we can align with to move forward in that way too?
You. For
Yes,
real.
yes,
Straight up,
yes,
straight up, for
absolutely.
real. You, no, all of you, because it's gonna take all of you that how we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do this and move forward in a good way, right? And you know, I mean, you know, we need to run for office. You know what I mean? We need to have climate champions. We need to have people that are gonna do the right thing in there, right? We need to vote those people in. We gotta start our own companies, right? We need the education. We need those advanced degrees. We need to start nonprofits. You wanna know something? I've done all those. You know what I mean? Because I believe in this that much. You know what I mean? And that's what it's gonna take. It's gonna take all of you. I said the same thing. Hey man, somebody better do something about this. Somebody better do something about this. And then my brother died. My brother died and I became a surrogate father to his kids. And I was looking at them, I was like, oh man, I gotta do something for them. Like this unbelievable protection thing came over me. Like I needed to do something solid for them. And I thought, oh man, you know, I'll just solve the climate problem for them. You know what I mean? You know, say no problem, right? You know, so I thought I'm gonna do them a solid. Here's what I'm gonna do. Hey man, I didn't think it was this complicated, to be quite honest with you. But I'm down this road now and I'm in so deep that I can't get out of it now. And this is the honest God truth. But I want to tell you something. I put 3 of these kids through college and they all got their bachelor degrees. And I got the next one that is going to school right now. And I'm gonna get his fourth kid through college. And what I'm really excited about is the insight that they have. And they say, Uncle, I'm so inspired by the stuff that you do that I want to do things for our community too. Like, how do I do it? You know, like I want to do what you're doing. I said, no, you got to do you. You got to do what you feel right and how you do and how you feel you want to participate in the world. You know what I mean? And you have it, and all of you have it. So that's what I would say.
We got about 10 minutes to go, and I want to make sure we get another question and give our panelists a chance to wrap up as well. So I think we have another question up here.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kyle Samajima, and I run Minneapolis Climate Action. We're part of the Just Solar Coalition with Native Sun. And the work that we are doing right now as a small organization in the Twin Cities is equitable, accessible community solar gardens. And talk about getting into something that, you thought, oh my God, I'm like way in over my head. Partly because we're working to democratize, decolonize the energy system. We are fighting against Xcel, even, the PUC, everyone's kicking it down the road. And whether it's Xcel or I work with Marie Killswarrior up on Red Lake, she's fighting, they're trying to get solar on schools and they come up after barrier after barrier. So one question is, and maybe you can pick the one because I have so many, sorry. One is the monopoly that we are in with Xcel, who's slow walks community solar. We've had panels on the roof of North High School for 2 years. Our other community solar garden, 2 years, and there are low-income people who are like, when's my bill credit coming? It's sickening, it's sickening. But the other, so that's a huge question. But maybe my other one is that we're constant, you don't have solar on roofs, you don't have people driving electric cars, you don't have people joining community solar gardens without that community engagement and people seeing themselves in the solution. And there are never enough resources for that community engagement. So how do any of you, whether it's Strong Buffalo talking to community members or you doing your work, this is such an easy question. What's your most potent tool for people stepping into that power?
Yeah, House File 1647, that's the Trojan horse. Because everything after that, when we start implementing that in other states, then we can start seeing the municipalization of places like Boulder, Colorado, where all these other places that want to go in and create their own utility can do that, right? And so that's why House File 1647 is so important. That is the Trojan horse. We leverage tribal sovereignty against the utilities. Now, everyone, Xcel Energy gave me $2 million for my EV network, okay? And yeah, no, and I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna take their money. I'm gonna take their money because I'm gonna build this EV network, right? And put them in tribal communities. And like I told them, I said, we're not gonna build pipelines, we're gonna build EV charging network pipelines. Right. We're gonna give people a choice, right? And so, I mean, we've got to work with them, but we've got to leverage them too, like, right? And so that's exactly what I'm trying to do, but House File 1647, that is the Trojan horse.
Jury.
Energy, that makes me so mad, like Xcel cannot own this transition.
Yep.
So from the grassroots side of things, when people of any walk of life see the effect that, for example, solar energy can have on a home that's, let's say, stricken by poverty, and the solar energy takes over and the avoided cost, we call it. They're not using the money saved on their electricity to go out and buy Prada bags and on Shopping Network, they're buying food and clothing and medicine. It's profound. And when one family sees it and the next family says, oh my gosh, how'd you do that? And then the next family sees it, it's powerful, and then they vote.
Yeah.
Right, great. We're actually going to start wrapping up, and I want to give our panelists a couple minutes just to kind of sum up what they've talked about, and then we're going to hear from Strong Buffalo again. So I want to give everybody a chance to a couple final words. Bob, just a minute or two about what's your final thought that you want to leave folks with today?
Just that all of you have the power. Vote. I'm always trying to fight for a better world. I always say that we got to keep on fighting for a better world and democracy. And so that's basically where I'm at with that.
Sherry, how about you?
This young lady that talked about we don't need to dig in the earth. I have children that are your age, and they say that to me. And I think about it every day. And I think about it, and I think we all should think about it. It took us a long time to get here, a couple centuries, right, to get here. This is now the 4th industrial revolution that we're having, right? And it can be better, but it's gonna take time. So, like Bob said, you are the change that you wanna see in the world. But there are people, Secretary Haaland for one, in Interior. She's working with agriculture. There are Winona LaDuke, she's working with agriculture. There are good people doing good work, join them. But keep the faith, keep the hope, because if we give up, it'll never happen.
Right. I want to thank everybody for coming here. Strong Buffalo is going to get the last word before he gets the last word. I want to thank again Bob Blake and Sherry Smith. Thank you for being here. And everyone, if you plan to stick around here, and if you haven't registered for any of the events for this weekend or for today, you can always do that downstairs. We have another great session coming up here at 5:30. Tariq Fancy, who's a former Chief Investment Officer for Sustainable Investing in BlackRock. We made it. We're all right. We're good. Is going to be here speaking as well. So stick around. And now some parting words from Strong Buffalo. Thank you.
Well, most American Indians call themselves the people. And people are the greatest energy in this world that was created. So remember that. We are consumers. That is the greatest power in this land, regardless of what anyone else will tell you. I'm closing with one I'm called Us, Trees and Leaves. Under the darkened pandemic sun, the wildfires are burning us, and the sparks of social justice are ablaze. We fall, we cry, and we wither. But relatives, with our family, the land, the air, and the water, and all that is living, we should begin loving, being ourselves, because we are becoming the beautiful and glorious trees and leaves. Our limbs are strong, our seeds are good, and our roots are deep. We need to create the good air for us to breathe and provide the shade from the pending heat. Because we are becoming the beautiful and glorious trees and leaves who are now standing up for what is right. We are becoming the beautiful and glorious trees and leaves that are standing up for what is right. Thank you.
Thank you.